Welcome back to the studio. Today I'm going to be blocking in the horse's head, and I just want to first of all say this looks a little out of proportion. The horse's head looks a little bit big in relation to her body. That's because I have to have the camera at an angle to the canvas. If I had it directly in front of the canvas, first of all, it would be in my way to paint, and also I would be in front of the painting and in front of the camera, and you couldn't see me, or see the work that I do. So we just have to do it this way. I am using mixtures of my mud, which is 2 parts of ultramarine blue, plus 1 part of alizarin crimson. I've added cadmium orange into that. I've added a little bit of cadmium red light, and also a little extra ultramarine blue. And this gives me my deep sorrel color of this horse. Horse's name is Kristen. She was Chance's first horse, and he used her for roping and stuff. That's why we have a roping saddle on her. And so anyway, this is just kind of a wonderful memory for him of his first horse. Anybody that's had horses and ridden horses, I mean, there's just something special about your first horse. And Kristen is a lot like my first horse in her coloration. My first horse was a little sorrel mare called Rebel, and she had a blaze face just like Kristen does. So this is kind of fun memories for me too. Well, Rebel was a rebel. She got her at auction for $125. I'd saved up all my babysitting money, and she was a trip. She was scared of adults. She didn't like men. Ended up kicking my mother. She was a kicker, and fortunately my mother was fine, but and they didn't sell the horse because of it, thank goodness. But Rebel and I were very good friends. She'd do anything for me. But adults, big people, I'm sure she had been mistreated, and she just was scared of particularly men, but just bigger people. So I was 12 years old, so I was pretty non-threatening. This is a mixture of my ultramarine blue plus some cadmium orange plus white. Around the horse's eyes and their nostril, the hair there is very thin, and you see some of that blue-gray skin coming through. Now she'll have a little rim light here on this eyebrow. Horses' heads, for artists, they're measured in quarters, and it's to get your proportions right. It's the same length from the base of the ear to the eye, from the eye to the cheekbone, from the cheekbone to the corner of the mouth, and then the corner of the mouth, the length of the head, to the tip of the nostril. So that's a good way to be able to see if your proportions are correct as you're painting and drawing horses. Work around the bridle. This is a mixture of my mud plus liquid. I can come back and make some areas a little bit darker. Now her blaze comes down on her nose, but her upper lip is a little bit darker right here, which is just, her muzzle is highlighted then, or accentuated by the sunlight hitting the flowers behind her in the distance. There's lots of different brushes here. I clean my brushes out between each as I use them. That's the secret to having nice, crisp, clean color on the canvas, is have a clean brush. Now we're going to be a little darker in here. Now I have saved my background colors so that I can come back in and work around her head if I come back, if I get too wild with my brush strokes and go out of the lines. So, and I want her jawline to be softer because the back edge of her head I want to recede, and so I soften that edge into the background. That helps give a little depth into the painting. And her lower chin here comes down a little bit more. Working this small is a little bit of a challenge, but we'll get it. Just takes some moving back and forth. A little highlight there. Well, she gets a little light here along the front of her face. And I'm using a maul stick. This hooks over the top of my canvas, or top of my easel, excuse me. And then I can brace my hand on it, and that steadies my hand as I'm painting. Because I can't put my hand on the canvas, I'd mess it up, so this allows me to rest my hand and steady my hand. This cheekbone here to get a little highlight on it. The sun's not hitting that directly, but still it's going to be lighter. And then we're a little darker here where her head comes down. We've got a little highlight. Again, this is not real bright because this is not actually in the sun, but we want to shape her head. Let me make a little bit of light here. I do want to just accentuate her right in here. This is a little bit darker. This is going to be lighter here too. And again, this is just blocking in. I'll have to refine this more. Now her blaze, I don't want to paint it pure white at this point. I want to have the shadow, have that in shadow, and then I'll come back and add the pure white to it where the sun's hitting it. But right now this is in the shadow of her forelock. And this is a bright brush. You can see it's a square end, but I can turn it sideways and make finer lines. It's going to get a little bit lighter down here. And this goes over the side of her nasal bones here. I'm going to make that just a tiny bit darker. And then this comes along the bridge of her nose. And that's going to get more of the pure white on it. Let's come back and going to add, as this goes over her nose, she's going to get a little pink down in here. Not much, but just a little bit. Again, I just keep cleaning those brushes, and especially with this white, I want my white now to be, this is going to be the pure white. That sun's coming this way. So this part of her blaze is in shadow, but then the light hits here, comes down her face. Again, down the bridge of her nose. And it catches this nostril on the far side. It kind of back rim lights it. Now this nostril on this side is not in as much light, but it's also going to get a little light here. I want to soften this edge. Okay, now I need to come back. Okay, this is... Now I'm just going to brace my hand against the easel here. Now this is a tiny little brush, and this kind of helps me get her nostril in there. There. And now I get a little tip of light right here on this little flap here. Now I'm going to do her eye. This is a mixture of my mud, which again is the 2 parts ultramarine blue and 1 part of alizarin crimson. I added liquid into that, and I just, to thin it just a little bit, I want to get the dark of her eye in. Too much of my brush there. Now, this is the fun part. We're going to add the catch light, which is, as the light comes, you get a little touch of light right here that just, well, if I can't paint to stick, didn't get quite enough on my brush. Okay, there. That's too big, but I can come back now with some of that mud and make that smaller. Then, using some of my mixture from her coat, add just a little bit of a light on her iris there. And just, she needs a little form here on her. Lower eyelid, it needed to be a little bit lighter, so here we go. I got it too light there, but I can come back with some of my darker color. Come back in here. It's just working back and forth to get everything the way it should be. Okay. So let's try it again. No, that's going to be too light. There we go. Get a little bit of a, bring some of the, a little bit more of the brown in here. Got that a little bit too blue. So there's Have a little indentation there. Okay, now I'm going to show you how I put the bridle on there. I've left it in my sketch. I'm using, again, my mud mixture. Comes around, back of her head. She has a tie down here. This comes over her bridge of her nose. There's going to be a little shadow under that. And then her bit. Again, this will all come back. I've got to highlight that. But this is how I block in the head. Get the basic shapes in, and then it's just a matter of coming back and refining. It's a long process, but that's how we get the basic shapes in. Now on her neck, that light's coming underneath her head here and hitting on her neck and her shoulder. So there's going to be a highlight here and here on the point of her shoulder. Here's my sketch. I've got that to go back. Again, I've saved my background color so I can come back in and make my correction. I had her chest too big there. I can just take some of this background color, go around, change the shape. But she'll have a highlight here on her point of her shoulder where that sun's hitting. I really appreciate you watching my YouTube videos, and I want to welcome all the new subscribers to my YouTube videos and also to my blog. You'll see the full step-by-step process of this painting on my blog, so you can see how it finishes up. And the link is in the description below. It's also on the address, is also on the final frame of my video. So you just have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you again, and come see my blog where you'll see this finished painting when it's done. So you have a super, super day.